Well, new details tonight on the investigation into alleged financial mismanagement and even harassment at Community Action Duluth, or CAD.
And complicating the story, the state agency overseeing CAD is already under scrutiny as fraud claims spread across the state.
Northern News Now's Kyrie Johnson has been tracking this investigation from the very beginning. You've joined us live in studio tonight with those developments. Kyrie?
Yeah, Laura and Dan, that's right. So this investigation is complicated and has many different moving pieces at this point, which now includes enhanced state oversight amid claims of mismanagement and an increasingly frustrated staff and community.
CAD has been in the spotlight amid mounting criticism and controversy since early November. Their abrupt cancellation of a farmer's market became a catalyst for much more. Vendors claimed they hadn't been paid in months. Employees claimed harassment at work, and board members resigned. Now, those allegations have slowly started to result in accountability efforts. We first reported on December 17th that CAD's state oversight organization, the Department of Children, Youth, and Families, ordered CAD to comply with a quality improvement plan.
I've now received portions of that quality improvement plan, which detail and confirm many of the previously existing issues we've already reported on.
DCYF staff reported that the agency's board has vacancies within all three sectors, and there are possible and perceived conflicts of interest between CAD's executive director and CAD board members. They also touched on alleged financial mismanagement and thousands in unpaid bills. Vendors confirmed that, telling me they expected a response by December 18th after a confrontation with the board in early December. But they say they were ignored and remain, for the most part, unpaid. DCYF staff also highlight internal issues CAD staff have expressed, saying a hostile work environment has been claimed, leading to staff turnover, and the human resource consultant does not handle matters related to sexual harassment.
But you'll notice portions of these documents have been redacted. A spokesperson for DCYF tells me that this is because private personnel data is included and it's from a government entity.
CAD board chair Salam Witherspoon provided a statement on the quality improvement plan Monday, saying, "The board is in the process of responding, and once we either dispute or accept these deficiencies, we will have a response with further actions that will need to be taken." Outside of the state investigation, CAD announced the onboarding of an external investigator on November 24th. I've now been notified that investigator withdrew due to a family medical emergency. Witherspoon says they're hiring a new contractor and hope to complete the third-party investigation by the end of March.
Now, the CAD board is required to send an initial quality improvement draft response to DCYF by the end of the month. In studio, Kyrie Johnson, Northern News Now.